Welcome to the Adventure Joe podcast, episode number 4. I'm very excited to have Marcus Shapiro on the show today. Marcus is from Georgia, and he's the founder of Fit for Trips. We're going to get some really good stuff that Marcus does, a lot of training and stuff that he does to help prepare people for big treks like Everest Basecamp, Mount Kilimanjaro, and others. Marcus, welcome.
Happy to be here with Adventure Joe, hanging out with Adventure Joe. That's just cool. That just sounds cool.
Yeah. Well, actually my sister-in-law gave me that moniker. It wasn't me.
I like it.
Yeah.
I'm HikeStrong, that's cool too.
It is very cool.
I don't know. Having my name in it would have been better, but I was a little bit shy about branding around myself. So early on, I went with Fit for Trips. At the very beginning of Fit for Trips, there was a branding company that tried to brand me, kind of gave me a character with I was wearing some sporty glasses at the time. And it just wasn't working for me. So I got the name Fit for Trips,
I think you do Adventure Marcus.
You think so?
Yeah, why not?
That could be my alter ego. I might
there
do
you
that.
go.
I'll put on my long hair from the 80s. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'll be Adventure Marcus. How about that?
Adventure Marcus. Yeah. I wish I could grow some longer hair, but
I used to have it, man. Really nice down to here.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I grew up in the hair metal days.
Wow. The
Call it
80s?
hair metal.
Hair metal?
It was never hair metal, but I guess to some people, like Poison, Motley Crue maybe hair metal. Poison, no, that was like glam metal.
Van Halen?
Van Halen, definitely not hair metal, but rock and roll.
Definitely
right?
some rock and roll. Absolutely.
Yeah.
How can I like some old Van Halen? Classic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's get into it.
Love it.
You ready?
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
Let's do it. Marcus is the founder of Fit for Trips and the architect of a hiking-specific training system used to prepare clients for hikes and treks spanning 30-plus countries, covering elevation, endurance, pack weight, and long days on real terrain. Since 2009, Marcus has worked intimately with more than 1,000 clients in 12-plus week engagements and consulted with thousands more. The system is built around what actually happens on the trail, not what looks good in the gym. His work exposed a major industry gap. Hikers and trekkers arrived undertrained, guides shouldered much of the consequences, and the experiences suffered for all involved. Marcus is now building the HikeStrong app to help change all that, scaling proven hiking fitness principles into a platform that turns everyday training into trail readiness. No mountains required. His focus is on bridging fitness and adventure travel to create safer trips, stronger hikers, and better outcomes for everyone involved. Great stuff.
Did I write that? That's fantastic.
That's pretty good.
That guy knows what he's doing. All right.
Well,
yeah, I'm excited.
That's the rumor on the street is you definitely know what you're doing, and you've definitely prepared a lot of people to take on some pretty serious adventures. So awesome stuff.
Yeah.
I kind of wish I would have known you 20 plus years ago when I was going after something called the Seven Summits, but
yeah, that's a different league. So I'm an expert. Let's say 19,000 feet and below, non-technical. That's my expertise. That is Flatlanders, paradise, Flatlanders paradise. I like how that sounds. So basically something that there's not a lot of friction to get ready for, non-technical, not long acclimatization periods where somebody can train sometimes with a 12-week peak period and off they go. Summit Kili, come back, and you're back to your regular life again. That's my expertise right there.
Well, a lot of people used to ask, Joe, you're from Indiana. You're from the flatland, right? You just mentioned there's no altitude. How did you train for that? Well, kind of some of the old try and true what we could do here and go flatland. A lot of stair climber, a lot of long distance rucks and so forth. So, talk about some of that? Because there are some people that are interested here in my neck of the woods that are interested in going maybe in the September Everest Basecamp Trek. As you know, we just went in October, and that's something definitely not to underestimate for sure.
No, it's not, but your friends are going to be fine. Everest Base Camp is, so I guess that's at about, I think 17,000 feet, somewhere around there. I believe the treks are typically about, maybe it's 12 to 15 day itineraries. Plenty of acclimatization time, but let's talk about the training, and let's define two
Absolutely.
periods. Let's define kind of a base phase and a peak phase. So I define peak phase as 12 weeks from your departure date. Base phase is everything outside of that. So anybody listening to this, if you are currently exercising, maybe it's group fitness classes, maybe you're on the treadmill and or stair machine. Again, let's lump in group fitness classes. If you're doing that 3 to 4 times a week, you probably have a pretty good base, and you might be surprised to hear me say that actually in that case, you might only need 12 weeks of training, okay? If you are exercising 2 to 3 days a week, I'd say, or less, you probably need a longer base training plan. But let's talk about the peak. So the key metric to success is going to be weekly elevation gain. Okay. Now, flatlanders and most people that have the disposable income to go to Everest Base Camp typically live in urban environments or suburban environments, oftentimes in places with not a lot of elevation gain. So you have to figure out how to convert your environment into a mountain simulation, let's call it. Okay. So you've got to get the elevation gain every single week. And how are you going to do that? Well, there are really 6 ways to do it. One is incline treadmill. 2, stair stepper machine or a stairmaster. Step ups, hill repeats, stairs, and hikes and walks with elevation gain. So you've got 6 ways to get elevation gain. Now, they're not all created equal. So you don't want to do 100% of your training on an incline treadmill. That's what I call mechanical elevation gain. Okay, you got to get some percentage of your elevation gain from what I call true elevation gain. Okay, true elevation gain is where you're actually moving your body, okay, and your pack. You're moving your mass from one place to another. Okay, you don't do that on a treadmill, and you don't do that on a stair stepper machine, although both of those are very effective, but not 100%. So true elevation gain would be step ups, hill repeats, hikes and walks, and stairs. You want to get about 70, well, you want to get at least 30% of your elevation gain from true elevation, right? And so how do you quantify that is the question that I've figured out, which we're going to build into the app. But at the moment, to quantify your elevation gain, there are several ways to do it. Okay, and let's say, for example, let's frame it this way. Let's say a person has to get about 4,000 feet of elevation gain per week. Okay, you got to be able to quantify that. So
Okay.
on my website at fitfortrips.com, there are 3 calculators. There is a stair calculator, which you measure the step height. You count how many stairs there are. You keep track of the laps. You put that in the calculator, and that gives you your elevation gain. There's also the treadmill calculator, which you put in the incline and you put in the distance, and that gives you your elevation gain. There is a step-up calculator, which if you measure a step and you step up and down Okay. It's going to get rather ridiculous to try to count how many times you step up and down. So let's say you follow a playlist that's maybe 120 beats per minute. Okay, you go into the calculator, the step up calculator, you put in the beats per minute, you put in the height of the stair, and you put in how long you did it, and it'll tell you how much elevation gain. Okay.
That's pretty cool. I've never done that.
Yeah, it's
That's pretty cool.
it's something I came up with because like I'm just a problem solver, and I'm like, all right, we got to know, we got to know we got to be able to quantify it. And so hikes and walks, that's easy. Go ahead and record it on your Garmin app or your hike, all trails or whatever you want to do. And then he'll repeat to something else you can record on Garmin, all trails or anything else that has a GPS tracker. But anyway, I'll stop there and clear up anything so far that might be confusing.
Yeah, so you're saying at least 12 weeks out.
Yeah,
right.
I think so. At least 12 weeks out. Definitely.
At least 12 weeks. And that's for someone that wants to try to tackle Everest Basecamp or Mount Kilimanjaro or even rim to rim. I mean, I know you've trained a lot of people for the Grand Canyon and rim to rim as well. Is that kind of that sweet spot to let viewers know that contact you and check out your programs, but at least start in that 12-week window?
I think that's
right?
I think that's safe. Yeah. 12 weeks. 12 weeks is good. And you mentioned rim to rim. Rim to rim is a very different kind of training. Elevation gain is not. Well, let's see. Elevation gain is not as important as rim to rim. I'm sorry, as Everest Basecamp or Kilimanjaro. Distance is a bigger factor in that. So the two main variables are distance and elevation gain. Most of the time, elevation gain is the key predictor of success. Rim to rim, a little bit more distance. If that makes sense.
Sure. So this HikeStrong app, is that going to be out soon, or will people be able to go to the Fit for Trips website to get that, or what?
So they can go to HikeStrongApp.com and just get on the email list.
Okay.
We're hoping for a launch in April, but this is software development. Software development is new to me, and we've got a pretty talented founding team of people who have been in the industry for a while. I'm the domain expert, and I'm learning a lot about software. And my guys are telling me that, well, April 1st is a great date. We got to have something to shoot for, but you never know. So we're saying the spring is when it's going to come out. And so this is the way for me to for me to scale what I've been doing with Fit for Trips.
Okay.
I've been meeting with people one-on-one since 2009 for at least 12-week engagements, meeting with them every single week. And finally, we're living in a technological age where you can create digital products faster and easier. And you can take the domain expertise of a hiking strength and conditioning coach, which I am, and put it in an app and have the confidence that plugging in the correct algorithm to mimic the coaching that I do in the app will deliver success for people who want to, accomplish just about any iconic, hike or trek or backpacking trip. So, yeah, real excited about that.
Yeah, again, so for viewers, when I kind of read the introduction with Marcus, he's helped clients, that took on adventures in 30 plus countries. So he is definitely the resident expert when it comes to outdoor training and preparing for some big trips, for sure. Marcus, is there any personal one that you have that's a favorite of yours?
Personal trip?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So interesting. There's kind of a convergence with my favorite hiking trip. And I'd say when the app started to become a reality. Okay. So back in, I guess, 23, was it 23? I think so. I was going to go on a hiking trip with some Flatlander friends of mine from South Florida. And so I wasn't going to train them like I trained all my other clients. I would happy to do it. It just, they're your buddies. It's just a different kind of thing. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to go back and look at all of the data from all my past clients and my own experience and come up with a formula that can take into consideration all of the hikes that we're going to do and spit out weekly distance and elevation gain goals. At the time, as I said, I was working with people one-on-one, and it was an art. It was 80% art, 20% science. Intuition, reading clients, asking them how they're feeling after each week, and then crafting the next week. Doing the same thing, talking to them, and then crafting the next week. Well, that wasn't going to happen with these guys. So I spit out what I thought would be their distance and elevation gain goals per week. And then it was their goal to go ahead and hit those. And so that was the very first time that I went to figure out what the formula would have to be. And that, fast forward to now where we are, that's just a small part of the algorithm, but it's a very important part. But anyway, getting back to that trip, somebody had introduced me to Will, and Will is who introduced us. So I reached out to Will and I said, hey, we want to do rim to rim Grand Canyon. And so the boys from South Florida who don't know anything about hiking, they've never really hiked before in their life, they say, well, Marcus, why are we just going to go out and do rim to rim? They're like, well, let's do other stuff. I'm like, okay. I'm up for it. I don't care. Most people fly to Arizona, they do rim to rim, and they're done. They go home. It's a 3-day trip. I'm like, okay, let's do it. So I go, hey, Will, what else can we do while we're out there? He's like, well, you want to climb the highest mountain in Arizona, Mount Humphreys? I'm like, yeah, sure, let's do it. So I tell the boys, I'm like, so we're going to do Mount Humphreys. I think it goes up almost to 13,000 feet, I believe. It's about a 10-mile round trip. And for a Flatlander, that's pretty rough, right? And they're like, that's not enough. They're like, we're not flying out there for 2 hikes. I'm like, I'm on board. You want to do a third? I'm like, let's do it. So I reached out to Will. I'm like, hey, Will, let's throw in a third hike. So he's like, let's do Cathedral Rock. That's it.
Cathedral Rock.
Let's go Cathedral Rock.
That's a great hike.
Yeah, there's some amazing scrambling at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Hike in, get some good scrambles, and then Will took us on kind of a 10-mile loop, basically. So I said to the boys, okay.
That sounds like something Will would do.
Yeah, well, Will was nervous about it.
Was he?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say nervous, but he's like, okay. It's like, well, Marcus, I trust you. This is what you do for a living. So you'll get the boys prepared, right? So anyway, I had to take the numbers from every one of those events, put them together. And again, that's how I got my distance and elevation gain. But we flew in day 1. Day 2, we hit Cathedral Rock. The next day, we went to Mount Humphreys. And then the next day, we did rim to rim.
That's brutal.
We didn't take it.
That's brutal. I mean, for viewers that are watching, research some of that. It's brutal.
I mean, that's a trifecta. That is an amazing itinerary. I think if there's a way to patent it, I would patent it. And I'd give it to Will. because that's an interesting way to think about structuring a trip. And that's what's great about what I do for a living. Just give me I'll look at the numbers, and that's what the app's going to be able to do. Just put the numbers in. So it doesn't
Yeah.
matter what you're going to do. So that's why we put in Cathedral Rock, we put in Mount Humphreys, we put in rim to rim, and that's essentially what I did, back in 23. And it worked. It worked great.
Wow.
And they crushed it.
How'd your friends do? Did they
Yeah.
did they cuss you out later for? Are they actually having some fun with that?
The only issue was not a training issue. It was one of our buddies who had some hypoglycemic issues on the third day, on day 3. So we were heading down into the canyon. Anybody who knows anything about rim to rim, it's a long descent. And if you're physically prepared for it, it's not hard. It's not hard to descend. But it does take a toll. It does have kind of an extreme amount of what's called eccentric loading. Puts a lot of stress on the muscles. But you are going downhill, so it feels a little bit easier. So just because it feels easier, you still have to fuel. You've got to eat. And you got to prepare your energy storage, we'll call it, for the ascent. So this guy didn't eat, but nobody really knew it. So we get down to the base, kind of by Phantom Ranch, and he's looking pretty rough, and Will picked up on it, and it took a good 20 minutes to get his energy back. And then from there on out, we went for, 20 minutes on, a little bit off, 20 minutes on, and so on and so forth. But we still made it in about 10 hours. We were on track for about 8 hours.
Wow.
Something like that.
That's amazing. Because
it was fun.
Yeah. That's the thing about the Grand Canyon is the people that haven't done it or, again, those that are watching it, that's something that's on your bucket list to hike some of the Grand Canyon is. That's where a lot of people get in trouble is, going down is pretty easy. Gets hard on the joints, but I always like to call or reference kind of the Grand Canyon as kind of a reverse mountain climbing, right? You're going down, but guess what? When you look up, you got to hike out of that sucker, and it's not easy.
Yep, that's right. They say,
yeah.
What is the saying? The saying is, going in is optional and coming out is mandatory.
Exactly.
And at the beginning of the rim to rim hike, if you start at South Kaibab, I don't know what it looks at in North Kaibab, but South Kaibab, there is a image of a dude vomiting. And that was put up, that wasn't like something good, that was put up by the national park. Like, hey, be aware, you better, if you're going to do this, don't be this guy.
Exactly.
Don't be this guy vomiting. You need to fuel, you need to hydrate, you need to be in shape. It's not a joke.
Yeah. Yeah. Because there's no guarantees of rescue either. So, yeah. So, talking with a local buddy here, and I told him I was going to be talking with you. And so he asked me a lot and so forth, and someone that's interested in one of these big trips this year. So, when it comes like treadmill or the long distance, pack weight, he's like, Joe, do you train with a pack? He's like, people train with a weight vest. What's your thoughts on that? I mean, half dozen the other. I've done both and have had. Go ahead.
Well, first of all,
I mean, do people need to go spend a lot of money on a weight vest, or actually train with a pack with a certain amount of weight? And one of your excuses is train with pack weight. So take it from there.
Train with a pack weight. A vest changes center of gravity a little bit. It doesn't sit as well on the hips, so it puts a lot of stress on your neck. But look, some people like it. I mean, the whole go ruck, the rucking wave, the rucking crew, whatever, they're comfortable being uncomfortable. right?
Yeah,
They're okay
right.
if their neck is crushed and it doesn't matter. And I'm not being derogatory. They're fine with that. They're there for the pain. Um, but backpacking's different. So I would train with a pack, okay, with a good hip belt on it, so that you take the weight off your neck and your shoulders. But you have to, it's not usually, it is non-negotiable. Whatever pack weight you will be carrying on the trip, you have to train with that. Now, if you can overcompensate, okay, and you can develop what's called a strength reserve, and let's say you're carrying 20 pounds, okay, 20 pounds would be more like a hut to hut type weight because you're not carrying your tent, you're not carrying food. So let's just say 20 pounds. Then you could train with 25 or 30 pounds and you can overcompensate. So what I suggest to people listening is if you don't have any knee issues, okay, if you don't have any back issues, and you can tolerate training with more pack weight than you'll be carrying, then go for it. But with training, you always want to mitigate risk, okay? So if somebody has an issue, yes, we've got to train with pack weight. If you have a joint problem that can be inflamed during training, then we're going to stick just to the pack weight. And there are cases where we peak on the trip. That means that, for example, I'm working with somebody who is doing the W Trek in Patagonia. He's had an Achilles issues for a really long time. He's going with his wife, and he's going to be carrying a pack that will probably end up being around 40 pounds because he's going to be carrying some stuff for her as well. He cannot train right now with a 40-pound pack. So what do you do in that case? Well, you can just not go, right? Or you train with a lighter pack and then you hit the 40-pound pack on the trip. Okay? What happens if your Achilles gets inflamed? You're already there. Depends what kind of personality and person you are, and I'm not advocating you go do this, but if you're inclined to go and you have the problem on the trip, well, you can work through it depending on your personality. But what you don't want to do is go into a trip with any kind of inflammation if you can avoid it.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, definitely. I've seen that enough over the years I've been doing it. Even the slightest little injury, and you start hitting that terrain, you can pretty much hang it up early.
Yeah.
For
It
the most
depends
part.
what kind of terrain, right? I mean, guys like you could work through it.
Yeah.
Adventure
Like a
Joe
little bit of pain. Adventure Joe. Yeah, suffer a little
You
bit.
could work through it, but it's not optimal. You always want to avoid that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a story I share. It's the Kilimanjaro. So maybe something you touch on that too, because altitude and training, you'll know, is on Kilimanjaro. Back in 2005 when I went, we had a guy on our team who was also a ultra runner, and he had just did this Western States 100 ultra marathon. So when we were connecting, this is 2005. There wasn't all these smartphones and the stuff we have now. It was email, right? And so we're like, this guy's going to run up Kilimanjaro, right? I mean, he just did the Western States 100 Ultra. He's going to run up Kili. The interesting fact about that tripping with him was he didn't summit. And he was probably the best in the best cardio shape of the team at that point. We were in pretty good shape at that time. But again, we thought he's going to sprint up this thing. No, he tossed in the towel. So again, I mean, with the training and altitude, can you talk a little bit about that a little bit and your thoughts on that? Because some people think, if you're in such great shape, and I've seen it so many times where I was maybe a little bit bigger guy on the trip. I'm a little bit bigger guy. And I always did well at altitude. If you talk to Will, he'd tell you the same thing. I seem to acclimate well. But I've seen some real guys that are just stick thin, awesome endurance backgrounds, and they haven't summited some peaks. So I've always found that fascinating. Thoughts on that?
Yeah. Question: did that guy run? Was he way ahead of the pack most of the time?
Good question. The first Yes, the first 2 3 days. I don't know if he was thinking he's going to set the pace. Besides our senior guide, who was an Everest climber, um, something to prove. I don't know, but he kind of took off. As I remember, he kind of took off early and kind of set a fast pace. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm pulling the rear. I'm like, I wonder if this guy's going to blow out early, and he did.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is pace. Got to keep
Yeah,
your respirations and your heart rate down. He blew through his glycogen stores like right away. He was toast. He set himself up for failure. It might have been
good point.
he
Good
might have been
points.
fine. He might have been fine if he was like you, just hanging in the back. Who cares about how fast you get up to the summit? Just go really, really slow and keep your heart rate um, in a really low, low zone, right? Um, but as far as the training goes, I mean, you really want to develop a really solid aerobic base. It's kind of counterintuitive. Most of the training you're going to want to do is top of zone 2. And then you do that about 80% of the time. And then about the other 20% is where you can go into the zone. Depending on what system you're using, that's when you want to get into the zone 4 and zone 5. But otherwise, you're going at a chill pace. Um, so he actually might have had the right engine for all of this. He might have been fine.
Yeah, yeah.
But the other thing is he may not have done strength training. Okay, so you want to have a strong chassis, strong muscles, not big, but strong, right? So
Hmm.
that so that you're so that every step you take, it's just less stress on your muscles and less work that they're theoretically having to perform. So that means you're more efficient from an energy standpoint. He may not have lifted weights. He may not have done strength training for your
Yeah, yeah.
legs.
Thinking back and kind of remember him and seeing, he didn't have a lot of muscle mass, which I'm glad you kind of hit on too, because our other mutual friend Melissa, that worked with you before, who was on our Everest Basecamp Trek team, you know, she's a fitness instructor, and she, hit on the same thing you just did. Is you yeah, you want to be as lean as possible, sure. It's less weight. You're hauling up a big mountain or a big trek. But I think a lot of people ignore that strength training and think, for something like what we're talking about, oh, it's just go ruck for 20 miles and stair climb for an hour. And they ignore hitting some of the weights, especially as we lose so much muscle mass as we age.
Yeah. Now, the interesting thing is if you're not dealing with a high altitude type scenario, you can move a lot faster. It's much more forgiving.
Mm-hmm.
It's just high altitude. It's just you don't know how you're going to respond to it. So you got to do everything. You got to do everything right. The mountaineers, the high altitude mountaineers will tell you that you need to spend a lot of time in zone 2. But with the kind of trips that I train people for, so let's exclude like Everest Base Camp or Kilimanjaro. So let's just
Mm-hmm.
talk rim to rim. Let's talk about I don't know, even Tour de Mont Blanc, or a backpacking trip domestically. You just got to hit your numbers. You just got to do it. It comes down to like a science. It comes down to like a formula. And I think that's what's unique about the HikeStrong app is it's a science. And um I guess if I were to give something for people to walk away with is I'd say maybe on the average for most hiking events or most hiking adventures, you probably want to do about 3,500 feet of elevation gain a week. And listeners, please, I'm just trying to give you something to walk away with. But
Mm-hmm.
That's not exact, but if you want to see what that feels like, then that's a good number to to use. So again, go to the fitfortrips.com and look at those calculators. And whether you do a step ups or treadmill or hike and walk, Stairmaster. Oh, by the way, the stepper machine, the way to
Yeah. Yeah.
calculate your elevation gain on there is just take floors times 10 feet. 40 floors, 400 feet. 50
Floors
floors,
times 10 feet.
the amount of
Okay.
floors times 10 feet. Okay. So throughout the week, mix it up however you want. See what 3,500 feet feels like. If you're going to do it all on the treadmill, it will feel different than if you throw in some stairs. Okay. For example, it's very different if you do 100% stairs, which is actually probably most people couldn't tolerate that on their joints. So really diversify how you do it with those 6 methods that I mentioned at the very beginning of getting elevation gain. So my point was, going back to that, is less about heart rate and zones. Just get the numbers. Get your elevation gain in. That's the key predictor of success for most trips. Not even the distance, really. It's what I've found, and it's really interesting. So I'm able to confidently stick with that. Again, high altitude
Yeah.
environments gets a little bit different, right? Everest
Yeah.
Basecamp, Kilimanjaro.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's really, comes down to that.
Yeah. The high altitude stuff is the stuff I end up loving for whatever reason. But yeah, I share with people that I guess, yeah, right. It just always seemed, people that go to Colorado or some of those that have climbed some 14ers out there and they think they're ready, but I had some good wake up calls myself, but it seems like once you punch above 14,000 feet, and it does, scientifically well, the molecules in the air start to drop, but it really seems like that oxygen level just starts getting turned down, and it gets to be a different ball game up there.
It does, but I want to give people confidence.
Yeah.
For Kilimanjaro, so there's a company called Thompson Safaris, and they claim a 98% success summit rate. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
When you do I don't know if it's their 8-day itineraries, but once you get into like the 10-day itinerary and you show up fit, so my clients they work with me and they go with Thompson, yeah, it's 19,000 feet, but the acclimatization time is there. Their training is solid. And so while that kind of altitude can be intimidating, it's very, very doable if in a non-technical environment, particularly when porters, I think this is an important distinction, right? Porters are carrying your stuff. It's not happening when you're doing like, some of the stuff that you've done. It's not happening that way. You're carrying your own gear.
Yeah,
That's
a lot of gear.
and that's a huge distinction.
Yeah.
And in fact, I don't even know if you're on a Kilimanjaro trip, you're even allowed to carry your. No, you
Yeah,
are.
you're still carrying.
You are.
You're still
You're
carrying.
allowed to. Well,
Yeah,
but you can
yeah.
hire a porter. You don't have to carry anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not even your day pack if you don't want.
Yeah.
You just have to keep it under a certain weight. They give you some parameters on that.
20,
So my
25
point is,
pounds, I think.
anybody listening to this, like, put Kili on your bucket list. Put Everest Basecamp on your bucket list. Yes, you're
Exactly.
going to feel.
Yeah.
Sorry to keep interrupting you. I keep forgetting to say this. You're going to feel some mild to uncomfortable altitude issues. Okay, that's all right. That happens.
Sure.
Doesn't mean you're going to die. Your guides will know with using the pulse oximeter, and they'll do that every day, so they'll know.
Yeah.
But you can feel uncomfortable and summit. You can have a really bad headache. Your appetite will be low, but you've got to force yourself to eat. You can have some side effects and still summit. Everybody does. So don't expect it to be perfect.
Absolutely. That's why I try to encourage people that that think they can't do it. It's hard, sure, but train with somebody like Marcus. Their programs can definitely help you achieve some of these goals. Some of these places we've talked about, a lot of people read about, or follow others. And I always hear, gosh, I'd like to do that. Do it. Life is short, right? Do it. You can do it. Marcus, anything else?
No, I can't think of anything. When I was thinking about this interview, and I was thinking about maybe you'd ask me about my childhood, and I was just going back. Um,
I was actually
and
about to, and we got. Go ahead.
I
I
don't
have it
know.
right. I have it right here.
It was just funny. It was just fun looking back. Like all
Uh-huh.
the kids have like e-bikes now, and I remember hopping on my bike in middle school, and I lived in Miami. So you said I'm from Georgia. I'm actually from Miami. I moved to Georgia
Uh-huh.
in 93, and I went to University of Alabama in 89. And that's where I got my athletic training degree. And
Okay.
so that's kind of where it all started. But before that, I was just my adventure in Miami, because we don't really have adventures. It was hopping on my bike and riding my little dirt bike, human powered, no engine, my dirt bike, okay, in middle school, riding 10 miles to Coconut Grove, going into the surf shop and looking at all the cool neon stuff. Think it was the 80s, late 80s. Think Miami
Yeah.
Vice, pink and neon yellow, all that kind of stuff, and thinking, wow, this stuff's really cool. And hopping back on my bike and riding back 10 miles. So 20 miles on a dirt bike. And we didn't have the wearables back then. Like it was just
Oh, nothing. None
a
of that.
totally
Yeah.
different time. It was wild to
Yeah.
think about that. It was fun.
Yeah. Right. No, I did have this down to ask you. What really kind of sparked your sense of adventure? Because those that have done some of this stuff, there was obviously a spark somewhere that drew us to the great outdoors or drew us to a good hard physical or mental challenge. And our mutual friend Melissa, she talked about the same thing. She's same age group, and we all have those same stories as kids. And you look now, you see some of these kids today, and their heads are all constantly in their phones. And I don't see a lot of it. Maybe some are. I don't know. Um, but I think between yourself and others, it'd be kind of great to they come across you for Fit for Trips or the Hike Strong app. You know, encourage young kids to start having adventures, start putting down all this tech. Get out into the great outdoors because there's so many benefits to it, physically, mentally, and so forth for sure.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But just to put a pin in that, so my adventure days started in the late 90s.
Okay.
Growing up in Miami, I did some surfing, but in the late 90s, I was so let's say about 4 years into my personal training career. I started personal training at 22 years old back in 93. This was back when bodybuilding was the influence, right?
Yeah. Right.
My
Yeah. Big time.
my certification was the Aerobics Fitness of America Association or something like that. They might have had one personal training certification back then, maybe none. So I had an aerobics certification for liability. There wasn't even really a personal training.
Yeah.
NSCA might have had one, and I got my certified strength and conditioning specialist from the NSCA in 2001. Okay. But anyway, in the late 90s, I got into mountain biking, and later on into hiking and backpacking. But I had to train for the things that we were doing, and that's where it started. So that's really the genesis of it.
Yeah.
Having
Yeah.
the experience to be able to put together training plans for football and for baseball and for soccer and all those kinds of things, it wasn't a difficult leap for me to figure out, okay, what do I need to do for these outdoor activities? And so that's where it really started for me.
Yeah. Awesome stuff. Well, viewers, again, Marcus Shapiro, fitfortrips.com. Be sure to check him out. I know some of you. Go ahead, Marcus. Say something.
HikeStrongApp.com.
HikeStrongApp.com.
Yeah, they
Okay.
could go to fitfortrips.com. They can get if they want to sign up for a consultation. Those are usually a lot of fun. Can talk about people's current training plans and whatever. Those are a lot of fun. So go ahead and do that. But get on
Gotcha.
the list
Okay.
at HikeStrongApp.com because just to find out when it comes out. You know.
Awesome stuff.
Oh, hey, I keep interrupting Adventure Joe. He's gonna smash me. Okay, so
Uh-oh.
here's the thing.
I didn't do it.
So also check out check out the Hike Strong podcast as well on any of the platforms.
Yeah, good. I'm glad you mentioned that. I have it right here. I was getting ready to close out. So the Hike Strong podcast, Marcus also hosts. So be sure to check that out for sure. And again, those who are interested in some of the trips we've talked about, Everest Basecamp, climbing Kilimanjaro, definitely a couple big ones. But all the other ones we talked about, hook up with Marcus, check out Fit for Trips, and check out the HikeStrongApp.com as well. And that should come out hopefully April. You're thinking, right?
We'll see.
We'll see.
Fingers
Yeah.
crossed.
Good old technology and software. I get it. Yeah. Others do too. So, Marcus, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, man. So much fun.
I know
grateful.
you come highly recommended. And, Will and I have talked about you. He's talked about you many times. So I'm glad we finally were able to, connect and get you on here. And
Will's a great guy. We'll plug Will. Will Burkhart, Badass Adventures.
Badass Adventures. Good old Will.
Yeah.
We've shared a few adventures, that's for sure. Marcus, again, thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it. Again, Venture Joe podcast. Check us out on YouTube, and we'll see you again soon. Everybody have a great day.